When I signed up for the master class, I wasn't too interested in magic as much as the idea of doing stuff for an audience. I think that's more along the lines of what I want to see and how to interact with people and things of that nature. I'm still not very good at that, even just in regular life. So anybody can help me out with that is always nice. Magic tricks, though, are always interesting. I mean, to do sleight of hand like this part is, sleight of hand is really, I don't know, it's always fascinating. It's always interesting to see how a performer does it or how a performer chooses to present the idea because they're all basic ideas. All the basic ideas are basically the same. If that makes sense. But with this, having Teller explain it and having Teller talk about taking time to make sure that when you put the ball in your hand, to put the ball in the hand and to make sure, because you end up keeping it in this hand. Spoiler alert with the magic, but you put the ball in the hand and examining how your hand looks if you still had it in your hand. Because at this point, this is where I guess you could say lying, but it's the trick. The trick part comes into play, and you have to maintain the structure and make it seem like you still have it in your hand when in fact it's in this hand and maybe even squirreled away in a pocket or thrown like they do. One part of their trick is to throw. I think the idea of worrying about making sure your hand looks like the ball goes in, the ball goes in, it keeps it there. I mean, obviously you would put the ball in your hand and see that the ball is there, and this is how you would feel. Your hands are a bit tense. You can hold it and then present that it's gone. I think that's the big takeaway from this. Taking time with the medium and examining how everything looks and how it feels and what the presentation is, because magic is all about presentation and YouTube is all about presentation because it is a visual medium, and you have to know that what you're showing is something that would be interesting, and you want to make sure that you're fully invested in making sure that every part, no matter how small, in this case just the ball in the hand, is somehow that important. Something so small, that's seemingly small, but I mean, just taking the time to do this and making sure it looks right and feels right, and other people will be distracted by this when you still have the ball in your other hand. That's the core of everything. You have to know, you have to be able to put in the work and show that even after all, it seems like something would be really quick, and it can be, but if you want it to be good, it takes practice. Everything that you want to do that's worth anything, you have to practice on. Everything you see, from like I play guitar to do magic to just making videos on YouTube, if you want to do it right, you just have to keep doing it over and over. Or at least for me, I know that if I don't practice constantly, I just start losing that muscle and it's just not as good and I just don't feel as confident. And I think just the tiniest little things sometimes pay off the biggest. I think that's the big takeaway from all of this. That's why I think it's really interesting, and it's a really interesting way to approach things. Just care. If you care, your audience can tell right away. Because if you don't care, if you're just kind of phoning it in, I've seen that too in YouTube videos, and you just kind of click away because it's just not worth your time. Because you just see that the person doesn't really care about what they're doing. Put in the work, put in the time, and no matter how small you think the movement is, or the clasping of the hands, and how it it's there and it's not, and that's all important. Every little piece that anybody can see and anything that you're doing with movements is important. So that was really fun just to go over it and to try to figure it out. I have not practiced. I've watched it and I've thought about it and I've said, okay, well, now it's in this hand, and how to move it and everything. Just the process, I think, is the important part. So that was Penn and Teller Masterclass. This is for part 2. I'm going to do all of them. So if you want to follow along, I'm just going to go through each one of them and talk about my takeaway from each lesson. So part 2 is done.